Daniel Murphy lived alone on a small frontier colony called New Eden. He was 34 years old and worked as a mechanic. His house sat on the edge of town, surrounded by open fields and the distant mountains that made this planet beautiful. He fixed engines, repaired farming equipment, and kept to himself most days. He had no family here. His parents had died years ago, and he had never married. Life was quiet, and Daniel had made peace with that one warm afternoon. Everything changed. Daniel was under a broken harvester, covered in grease and sweat, when he heard a sound he did not recognize. It was a deep hum, like thunder that would not stop. He rolled out from under the machine and looked up at the sky. A silver ship was descending toward his property. It was not a cargo transport or a colony shuttle. This ship was sleek and elegant, covered in patterns he had never seen before. He wiped his hands on his work clothes and walked toward the landing site. The ship touched down gently, and for a moment nothing happened. Then a ramp extended from its side, and two figures emerged. Daniel stopped walking. His heart began to beat faster. The first figure was tall, perhaps 7 feet, and she was not human. Her body was covered in scales that shifted between deep green and dark blue, depending on the light. She had a long tail that moved behind her with grace. Her face was beautiful in a strange way, with sharp features and eyes that glowed like molten gold. 2 small horns curved back from her forehead, and when she breathed, Daniel could see faint wisps of heat escaping her nostrils. She was a dragon. A real, living dragon in humanoid form. Beside her stood a child. The little one was much smaller, barely reaching Daniel's waist. Her scales were pale green, almost white, and her eyes were huge and curious. She clutched the tall dragon woman's hand and stared at Daniel without blinking. The dragon woman walked toward him with calm, measured steps. She stopped a few feet away and spoke. Her voice was deep and musical, like distant bells. "You are Daniel Murphy of New Eden Colony. Registration number 7-4-2-9. Daniel nodded slowly. "That's me. Who are you?" "I am Vela of the Drakari. This is my daughter, Kira." She reached into a bag at her side and pulled out a folder of documents. "I am here because you requested a mate through the intergalactic matching program." Daniel blinked. "I did what?" Vela held out the documents. Daniel took them with shaking hands and began to read. The papers were official. They bore his name, his colony registration, his photograph. There were signatures and stamps from agencies he had never heard of. According to these documents, he had applied for a mail-order bride 6 months ago and had been matched with a Drakari female named Vela. "This is a mistake," Daniel said. "I never applied for anything like this. I never even knew your species existed until right now." Vela tilted her head. Her golden eyes studied him carefully. "You are saying these documents are false?" "Yes. I mean, I don't know how, but yes. I never sent any application. I never asked for a bride. Someone made a mistake, or maybe someone is playing a terrible joke." Daniel expected anger. He expected the dragon woman to become furious at being deceived. Instead, Vela simply nodded. "I understand," she said quietly. "Such mistakes happen more often than you might think. The matching agencies are not always honest." She paused and looked down at her daughter, then back at Daniel. "In that case, I ask that you contact the Transport Authority and arrange for our return to Drakkar Prime. We will not trouble you further." Daniel felt a wave of relief. This was going to be simple. He would make some calls, explain the situation, and these two would be on their way home. He pulled out his communicator and began searching for the right contact numbers. Then something tugged at his trouser leg. Daniel looked down. The little dragon child, Kira, had released her mother's hand and walked over to him. She was staring up at him with those enormous golden eyes. Her small clawed hand gripped his pants, and she made a soft chirping sound, almost like a bird singing. Vela's expression changed. Her eyes widened slightly, and something that might have been worry crossed her face. "What did she say?" Daniel asked. Vela did not answer immediately. She seemed to be struggling with something, searching for the right words. Finally, she spoke. "Among my people, children possess a gift that adults lose as they grow older. They can sense the truth of a person's soul. They can see what lies beneath the surface, beyond words and actions, to the core of who someone really is." Daniel looked down at Kira again. The little dragon girl chirped once more and tightened her grip on his leg. She seemed very determined about something. "Kira has just made a declaration," Vela continued. "In your language, the closest translation would be chosen guardian. She has decided that you are worthy of her trust and protection. She has claimed you as her family. What does that mean exactly?" Daniel asked. His voice came out higher than he intended. Vela closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. "In Drakari law, a child's claim is sacred. It supersedes all other agreements, including my own preferences. If Kira declares someone her guardian, that bond cannot be broken by anyone except Kira herself." Daniel stared at her. "Are you saying you can't leave?" "I am saying that I will not leave my daughter. And my daughter has decided that she will not leave you." Vela's tail swished behind her with agitation. "I know this is not what you wanted. I know you did not ask for any of this. But Kira's gift has never been wrong. If she sees something in you worth claiming, then there is something in you worth claiming." Daniel looked at his communicator, then at the documents in his other hand, then at the small dragon child who was now trying to climb his leg like it was a tree trunk. "This is insane," he said. "Yes," Vela agreed. "But it is also true." Kira finally succeeded in climbing up to Daniel's hip. She wrapped her small arms around his neck and pressed her warm, scaly cheek against his shoulder. She made a contented humming sound, like a cat purring. Daniel stood there in the afternoon sun, holding a dragon child he had just met, while her mother watched with an expression that mixed hope and fear in equal measure. "I have a spare room," he heard himself say. "It's not much, but it's warm and dry. You can stay there until we figure this out." Vela's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank you, Daniel Murphy. You are kinder than you needed to be." Daniel looked at Kira, who had fallen asleep against his shoulder, completely trusting him despite knowing him for less than 10 minutes. "I have a feeling," he said quietly, "that my life is about to get very complicated." He had no idea how right he was. The first week was strange and difficult for everyone. Daniel quickly learned that Drakari did not sleep the way humans did. Vela politely refused the bed he offered her. She explained that her people preferred small, enclosed spaces with warmth surrounding them. Open beds made them feel exposed and unsafe. Daniel spent 2 days building a sleeping alcove in the spare room. He lined it with thermal blankets and installed a heating unit that kept the space warm through the night. When Vela saw it, she touched the walls gently and said nothing, but her eyes softened in a way that told Daniel he had done something right. Kira was easier to please. The little dragon girl found wonder in everything. She chased insects in the yard. She collected rocks and leaves and arranged them in careful patterns on the porch. She followed Daniel around the workshop, watching him work with endless curiosity. She could not speak English well yet, but she learned new words every day, repeating them in her chirping voice until she got them right. Vela kept her distance from Daniel at first. She was polite but formal, always careful to stay out of his way. She helped with cooking and cleaning without being asked, as if she needed to prove her usefulness. Daniel noticed that she never ate until he had finished his meal, and she always took the smallest portions. One evening, he asked her about it. "On Drakkar Prime, I was a widow," Vela explained. They sat on the porch while Kira played in the yard, catching fireflies in her small hands. My mate died 3 years ago in a mining accident. He was a good male, strong and kind. When he died, I lost everything. His family took back the house and the savings. I had no relatives of my own to help me. Without connections or wealth, a widow has few choices on my world. So you signed up for the matching program, Daniel said. It seemed like the best option. A new start on a new world. A chance to give Kira a better life. Vela's tail curled around her feet. The agency showed me your profile. They told me you had applied for a Drakari mate specifically. They said you were a good man looking for a family. I believed them because I wanted to believe them. Daniel had spent the past few days doing research. The matching agency that had brought Vela to his door was under investigation by 17 different colonial governments. They had been creating fake applications, forging documents, and collecting fees from both sides. Hundreds of people had been affected, both human and alien. We could sue them, Daniel offered. Take them to court. Get compensation. Vela shook her head slowly. Legal proceedings across species boundaries take years, sometimes decades. And during that time, where would Kira and I go? We have no money to return home. We have no friends in human space. We would be refugees with nothing. Daniel watched Kira in the yard. She had stopped chasing fireflies and was now walking toward them, her small hands cupped carefully around something. She climbed the porch steps and presented her treasure to Daniel with a proud smile. Inside her palms glowed a single firefly, still blinking its soft light. For you, Kira said in her careful English. Pretty light. Like stars. Daniel felt something shift in his chest. He did not know what to call it. He just knew that sending this child away felt wrong in a way he could not explain. You could stay, he said to Vela. Not as a bride or anything like that. Just as guests. You can live here until you figure out what you want to do with your lives. Vela stared at him. You would do this? You owe us nothing. We arrived uninvited. We disrupted your life. Why would you help us? Daniel thought about the question. He thought about his empty house and his quiet days. He thought about eating alone every night and talking to no one except customers. He thought about the way Kira looked at him like he was something special, and the way Vela watched over her daughter with such fierce love. Because it's the right thing to do, he said finally. Because sending a mother and child into the unknown when I have room to share would make me a pretty terrible person. And because maybe I'm tired of being alone. It was the most honest thing he had said in years. Vela was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. It transformed her face, softening the sharp angles and making her golden eyes glow warmer. Thank you, Daniel Murphy, she said. I will not forget this kindness. The weeks that followed brought changes Daniel had not expected. Vela began helping in the workshop, and he discovered she had a natural talent for mechanical work. Her scales were resistant to heat, which made welding safe and easy for her. Her claws could grip tiny components that human fingers struggled to hold. Together, they could complete repairs in half the time it used to take Daniel alone. Word spread through the colony. Murphy's repair shop now offered services no other garage could match. Business increased. Money improved. Daniel hired Vela officially, paying her a fair wage that she tried to refuse at first. You are giving us shelter and food, she argued. That is payment enough. No, Daniel said firmly. You work, you get paid. That's how it works. You're not a servant, Vela. You're my partner. The word hung in the air between them. Partner. Vela's eyes widened slightly, and something passed across her face that Daniel could not read. Partner, she repeated softly. I have not had a partner since my mate died. Well, Daniel said, feeling his face grow warm, now you do. Kira started attending the colony's small school. There were some concerns at first from other parents. They had never seen a Drakari before. They worried about safety, about differences, about the unknown. But Kira won them over within days. She was gentle and sweet. She shared her snacks. She helped other children with their work. When someone fell down on the playground, Kira was always the first to help them up. She also had a strange gift. She always seemed to know when someone was sad, even if they were trying to hide it. She would approach them quietly and offer a small treasure from her collection. A pretty stone, a feather, a dried flower. The other children began to seek her out when they felt bad, knowing that Kira would make them feel better. 3 months after Vela and Kira arrived, Daniel realized something that surprised him. He was happy. He had not been truly happy in years. He had been content. He had been comfortable. But happiness was something else entirely. Happiness was coming home to the smell of cooking food and the sound of Kira's laughter. Happiness was working beside Vela and watching her face light up when she solved a difficult problem. Happiness was sitting on the porch at night, talking about everything and nothing until the stars came out. He did not know what the future held. He did not know if Vela would stay forever or eventually find somewhere else to go. He did not know if Kira's claim on him would last or fade as she grew older. But for now, in this moment, he had something he had thought he would never have again. He had a family, and he would do anything to protect them. The night the raiders came started like any other. Daniel, Vela, and Kira had eaten dinner together. Kira showed them a drawing she had made at school, a picture of 3 figures standing in front of a house. One was tall with scales, one was smaller with scales, and one was a human with brown hair and a big smile. Underneath, in careful letters, she had written the word family. Daniel put the drawing on the refrigerator where he could see it every morning. Vela watched him do this with an expression he had learned to recognize over the past months. It was the look she got when she wanted to say something but did not know how. They put Kira to bed in her warm alcove. Daniel told her a story about a brave little girl who traveled to distant stars. Vela hummed a Drakari lullaby, a deep melodic sound that vibrated in Daniel's chest. Kira fell asleep with a smile on her face. Then Daniel and Vela sat on the porch as they often did, watching the moons rise over the mountains. The night was peaceful. The air smelled like wildflowers and fresh earth. The first explosion came without warning. A ball of fire erupted in the center of town. The sound reached them a second later, a deep boom that shook the ground. Daniel jumped to his feet. More explosions followed. Screams echoed across the fields. The night sky, which had been dark and calm, was now lit with flames. "Raiders," Daniel said. The word tasted like ash in his mouth. He had heard stories about pirate attacks on frontier colonies. They came for supplies, for equipment, for people. They took what they wanted and burned what they left behind. He ran inside and grabbed his rifle from the locked cabinet. It was an old military weapon from his service days, before he had come to New Eden to escape violence and find peace. He had hoped never to use it again. When he returned to the porch, Vela was standing there. Her eyes were different. The warm gold had become blazing white, like twin stars burning in her skull. Her scales seemed darker, harder. Her claws had extended to their full length. "Take Kira to the cellar," Daniel told her. "The walls are reinforced. You'll be safe there." "No." Daniel stopped. "What?" "My people were warriors before we were anything else," Vela said. Her voice changed too. It was deeper now, rougher, like stones grinding together. "For 10,000 years, the Drakari defended our world against enemies you cannot imagine. We conquered. We burned. We became legends." She turned those white-hot eyes toward the flames in town. You think I will hide in a cellar while those who threaten my child walk free? Vela, these are armed raiders. They have plasma weapons. They kill for fun. Then they will find no fun here. Vela's lips pulled back, revealing teeth that seemed longer and sharper than before. Kira will be safe in the cellar. She knows to stay hidden until one of us comes for her. But I will not hide. I will fight. And if you try to stop me, I will fight you first. Daniel saw no point in arguing. He had learned enough about Drakari culture to know that Vela meant every word. He nodded once. Then we fight together. Stay close. Watch my back. I'll watch yours. They woke Kira and took her to the cellar. The little girl was scared, trembling, but she did not cry. She hugged them both tightly and promised to stay quiet. Then Daniel sealed the cellar door and turned to face the night. The raiders had landed 3 ships on the outskirts of town. There were perhaps 30 of them, armed with plasma rifles and protected by combat armor. The colony's small security force had already fallen. Bodies lay in the streets. Buildings burned. Survivors ran or hid or screamed for help that would not come in time. Daniel and Vela moved through the shadows. Daniel had trained for combat years ago, and the old skills came back quickly. He aimed carefully and fired precisely. Each shot found its mark. Raiders fell, but Vela was something else entirely. She moved like liquid fire, faster than anything her size should be able to move. When raiders shot at her, the plasma bolts struck her scales and scattered harmlessly. When they tried to run, she was already there, waiting for them. Her claws cut through their armor like paper. Her tail swept their legs from under them. And when she opened her mouth and breathed out, blue-white flames consumed everything in their path. Daniel had seen combat. He had seen death and violence and things that still haunted his dreams. But watching Vela fight was different. She was beautiful and terrible at the same time, an ancient predator unleashed after centuries of sleep. She showed no mercy. She gave no quarter. Every raider who raised a weapon against her died before they could fire. They fought through the night, street by street, building by building. Daniel covered Vela with precise rifle fire while she tore through enemy lines like a force of nature. They saved people where they could. They ended threats where they had to. When dawn finally came, the raid was over. 11 colonists had died. It could have been everyone. Would have been everyone, if not for a human mechanic and his dragon partner standing together against the darkness. Daniel sat on the steps of a burned building, his rifle across his knees. His hands were shaking. His throat was raw from shouting and smoke. Every part of him ached with exhaustion. Vela sat beside him. Her scales were stained with soot and other things she did not want to think about. Her white-hot eyes had faded back to warm gold. She looked tired, but also alive in a way Daniel had not seen before. "You fought well," she said quietly. "For a human." Daniel laughed weakly. "You fought well for anyone." I had almost forgotten what it felt like. Vela looked at her clawed hands. To be a warrior again. To protect instead of run. To stand and face the enemy instead of hiding. She paused. I had forgotten what I was capable of. Pretty capable, as it turns out. Only because I had something worth fighting for. Vela turned to look at him. When I came to this world, I thought I was just a widow with nothing left to give. I thought my only purpose was to raise my daughter and survive. But tonight, I remembered something important. What's that? That I am Drakari. That fire runs through my blood. That my ancestors burned empires and built new ones from the ashes. Her hand found his, warm scales against cold human skin. And that some things are worth burning for. Daniel looked at their joined hands. He thought about the little girl waiting in the cellar. He thought about the family portrait on his refrigerator. He thought about all the quiet moments and small kindnesses that had built something precious over the past months. "We should check on Kira," he said. "Yes." Vela stood and helped him to his feet. "Let's go home." Home. The word had never meant more to Daniel than it did in that moment. They walked together through the ruins of their colony, hand in hand, ready to rebuild what had been broken. And in the cellar, waiting for them with hope in her golden eyes, a little dragon girl heard their footsteps and knew that her family had returned. The story of the raid spread faster than fire. Within days, every colony in the sector had heard about New Eden. Within weeks, the story reached Earth itself. A dragon woman defending a human settlement. A mechanic and an alien fighting side by side against impossible odds. The news networks could not get enough of it. The footage from security cameras and survivor recordings played on screens across known space. Daniel hated the attention. He refused most interview requests and asked people to leave him alone. He was not a hero. He was just a man who had done what needed to be done. But the galaxy did not care what Daniel wanted. It wanted a story, and it had found one. Vela handled the attention better. She answered questions calmly and politely. She explained that she had only done what any Drakari would do to protect their family. She made it clear that Daniel deserved equal credit for the victory. She was graceful and dignified and beautiful. And the galaxy fell in love with her. 3 months after the raid, a delegation arrived from Earth's central government. They came in a large official ship, dressed in expensive suits and carrying briefcases full of documents. The leader of the delegation was a woman named Patricia Cole, a diplomat with silver hair and sharp eyes. She asked to speak with Vela privately. Daniel did not like it, but Vela agreed, and he had no right to stop her. The meeting lasted 4 hours. When it ended, Vela's face was unreadable. She asked Daniel if they could talk after Kira went to bed. He agreed, feeling a cold weight settle in his stomach. That night, after Kira was asleep in her warm alcove, Daniel and Vela sat at the kitchen table. The same table where they had shared hundreds of meals. The same table where they had talked and laughed and planned their days together. Now it felt like a barrier between them. "The delegation made me an offer," Vela said. Her voice was careful, controlled. "They want me to return to Earth as a cultural ambassador, the first official Drakari representative in human government." Daniel nodded slowly. He had expected something like this. What would that mean? I would live on Earth. I would meet with leaders and speak at conferences. I would help build bridges between our species. Vela paused. They offered citizenship for me and Kira, full legal rights. They offered a house, a salary, education at the finest schools. Everything we could ever need. That sounds like a good deal. It is a very good deal. Vela's eyes met his. It is everything I could have wanted when I first left Drakkar Prime. Security, status, a future for my daughter. Daniel forced himself to smile. Then you should take it. This is the kind of opportunity that doesn't come twice. That is what Patricia Cole said. She's right. You deserve this, Vela. You and Kira both. You deserve more than a mechanic's workshop on a frontier colony. You deserve more than I can give you. Vela was silent for a long moment. Her tail curled around the leg of her chair, a sign of agitation that Daniel had learned to recognize. When I arrived here, she said quietly, I asked you to send me back. Do you remember? Of course I remember. You refused because Kira had chosen you. But I never told you what that truly means. Vela reached across the table and took his hand. Her scales were warm, almost hot, against his skin. Among my people, children are sacred. Their gift of seeing souls is considered the purest form of truth. When a child chooses a guardian, it is because they have seen something in that person that most cannot see. You told me that before. Something about a sanctuary. Yes, but I did not explain it fully. Vela's grip tightened slightly. Sanctuary is not just safety. It is not just protection. It is a recognition of something deeper. A sanctuary soul is someone who would sacrifice everything for those they love. Someone whose honor cannot be bought or broken. Someone who would stand against the darkness no matter the cost. Daniel thought about the night of the raid. He thought about the fear he had felt, the certainty that he might die. And he thought about the choice he had made anyway, to fight instead of hide, to protect instead of flee. Kira saw sanctuary in you the moment you tried to send us away, Vela continued. She knew you were good before I did. She knew you were worth keeping before I could see past my own fear and doubt. What are you saying? I am saying that the delegation wants me to leave. They are offering me everything I thought I wanted. Vela's golden eyes burned into his. But Kira has already picked you. And now so have I. Daniel's heart stopped. Then it started again, beating faster than before. Vela, I'm just a mechanic. I fix engines and live in a small house on the edge of nowhere. Earth is offering you the galaxy. Why would you choose this? Because you offer something Earth cannot. Vela released his hand and stood up. She walked around the table until she was standing beside him. Earth offers power and position. Earth offers comfort and security. But you offer sanctuary. You offer a home where Kira can grow up knowing she is loved. You offer a partnership built on trust and respect and genuine care. She knelt down so their eyes were level. When my mate died, I thought I would never feel safe again. I thought love was something that happened once and could not happen twice. But then I came here and met a human who showed me kindness when he had every reason to show anger. A human who built a sleeping alcove because he learned that my people feel exposed in open beds. A human who put my daughter's drawing on his refrigerator and looks at it every morning like it is the most precious thing in the world. Daniel felt tears prickling at his eyes. He blinked them back. I love you, Daniel Murphy, Vela said simply. I did not plan to. I did not expect to. But here I am, on my knees in your kitchen, telling you that I choose you over everything else the galaxy could offer. Because you are worth more than status or power or security. You are worth more than all the promises Earth could make. Daniel reached out and touched her face. Her scales were smooth and warm under his fingers. I love you too, he said. I think I have for months. I just didn't know how to say it. Vela smiled. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Then say it again. I love you. He leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers, a gesture he had learned was important in Drakari culture. I love you, and I love Kira, and I don't want either of you to ever leave. We won't, Vela promised. We are home. We are exactly where we are meant to be. They stayed like that for a long time. Foreheads touching, breathing the same air, feeling the warmth of each other's presence. Tomorrow, Vela would tell the delegation her decision. Tomorrow, there would be paperwork and explanations and probably disappointment from powerful people who were used to getting what they wanted. But tonight, there was only this. Two souls who had found each other across the vast darkness of space. Two people who had chosen love over logic, family over fortune, sanctuary over status. And in her warm alcove, a little dragon girl slept peacefully, dreaming of the future she had known was coming since the first moment she saw her chosen guardian. She had picked well. She always did. Vela did not simply refuse the ambassador position. Instead, she made a counter-offer. New Eden, she proposed, would become the first official joint settlement for humans and Drakari. Earth would provide resources, infrastructure, and protection. In exchange, Drakari, who wished to experience human culture, would have a welcoming community. Cultural exchange would happen naturally, through daily life rather than formal politics. Understanding would grow through shared meals and neighborhood friendships rather than diplomatic speeches. Patricia Cole took the proposal back to Earth. The debates lasted months. Politicians argued. Committees met. Reports were written and rewritten. But in the end, the central government agreed. New Eden would become something new in the history of two species. A bridge between worlds. Daniel watched the changes come slowly at first. Then faster. New buildings rose from the ground. A proper school replaced the small one-room building where Kira had learned her first English words. A medical center opened, staffed by both human doctors and Drakari healers who used ancient techniques that somehow worked alongside modern technology. Shops appeared on what had once been an empty main street. A restaurant opened that served both human and Drakari cuisine. And the owner, a cheerful human man named Pete, became famous for creating fusion dishes that combined the best of both cultures. The Drakari came in small numbers at first. A few families seeking adventure, some young ones eager to explore beyond their home world. A few elders curious about the species that had captured a widow and her daughter. They settled in homes built to accommodate their needs, with warm alcoves and reinforced walls and gardens where they could grow the plants they missed from home. Daniel and Vela married in a ceremony that combined human and Drakari traditions. Daniel wore a simple black suit. Vela wore flowing robes of deep crimson, the color of passion and commitment in her culture. Kira served as the flower girl, scattering petals of flame-colored flowers that grew only on Draka Prime. Half the colony attended, human and Drakari standing side by side, watching as two people from different worlds promised to spend their lives together. Murphy's Repair shop expanded into Murphy's Industrial Services. Daniel hired workers of both species. They fixed starship engines and farming equipment and everything in between. Vela managed the business side while Daniel handled the technical work. They made a good team, balancing each other's weaknesses and strengthening each other's abilities. Kira grew quickly, as Drakari children did. By her 10th year, she was nearly as tall as Daniel. She had inherited her mother's gift for mechanics and her father's patience. She helped in the workshop after school, asking endless questions and never satisfied until she understood exactly how everything worked. She also inherited something from neither parent, but that seemed to come from the best of both. She had a way of bringing people together. When conflicts arose between humans and Drakari, which happened sometimes despite everyone's best intentions, Kira was often the one who found solutions. She could see both sides clearly. She could explain one perspective to the other in ways that created understanding instead of anger. 2 years after the wedding, Vela gave birth to a son. Daniel held his child for the first time in the same hospital room where colonists had once recovered from raider injuries. The baby was tiny, smaller than Kira had been, with soft scales that shimmered between green and pink depending on his mood. He had Vela's golden eyes, but Daniel's stubborn chin. He was the first hybrid child born on New Eden, but the doctors said there was no reason he would be the last. They named him Marcus, after Daniel's father. In Drakari, his name meant hope for tomorrow. Kira adored her little brother from the first moment. She held him carefully, chirping soft lullabies that she remembered from her own childhood. She swore to protect him always, to be his guardian as Daniel had been hers. Watching his daughter cradle his son, Daniel felt something he had no words for. Pride and joy and gratitude all mixed together into something larger than himself. He had never planned for this life. He had never imagined it was possible. Yet here he stood, surrounded by family, part of something that would ripple across history long after he was gone. 5 years passed. Then 10. New Eden grew from a small frontier colony into a thriving community of nearly 50,000 souls, half human and half Drakari. The story of its founding, of a mail-order bride mistake that became a love story, of a little girl's gift that saw sanctuary in a lonely mechanic, became legend. Other worlds followed New Eden's example. Joint settlements appeared across known space. Humans and Drakari built friendships that their ancestors could never have imagined. Two species learned from each other, growing stronger together than either had been alone. Daniel stood on his porch on a warm summer evening. Watching the sunset paint the mountains in colors he still found beautiful after all these years. He was 54 now, his hair gray at the temples, his hands rougher from decades of honest work. But he still felt young when Vela stood beside him. Her scales still shimmer between green and blue. Her eyes still golden and warm. Kira and Marcus ran in the yard, playing some game they had invented that involved a lot of running and laughing and occasional bursts of flame that Marcus was learning to control. They were happy children, safe children, children who had never known fear or hunger or the uncertainty of not belonging. Do you ever regret it? Daniel asked Vila. It was a question he still asked sometimes, even after all this time. Staying here when you could have had everything? Vela leaned against him, her warmth seeping through his shirt just as it had the first time she touched him. I have everything. A home that welcomes me. Work that matters. A mate who sees me as a partner rather than a possession. And children who will grow up knowing two worlds instead of one. Kira looked up from her game and chirped something in Drakari. Vila laughed. What did she say? Daniel asked. She said that her brother cheats at every game, but she lets him win anyway, because that is what big sisters do. Daniel smiled. He thought about the scared, uncertain widow who had stepped off a silver ship so many years ago. He thought about the lonely mechanic who had tried to send her away. He thought about all the small moments between then and now, the thousands of days they had built into a lifetime. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not leaving when I gave you the chance. For choosing me when you could have chosen anything else. For teaching me that the best things in life are the ones we never expected. Vela turned and pressed her forehead against his. A gesture that still meant everything to both of them. Thank you for being someone worth choosing, she said. Thank you for being sanctuary when I needed it most. Thank you for loving a dragon woman and her child when you had every reason to turn us away. In the yard, Marcus breathed a small flame that singed Kira's sleeve. She yelped in mock outrage and chased him around the garden. Their laughter echoed across the colony, mixing with the sounds of neighbors talking and equipment humming, and life continuing as it always did. Somewhere in the sky, stars were beginning to appear. The same stars that humans had followed into the unknown. The same stars that Drakari had wondered about for thousands of years. Now those stars watched over a world where two species had learned to be family. Daniel Murphy had wanted a quiet life. He had wanted peace and solitude, and nothing that would disturb his careful routines. Instead, he had found something better. He had found home. Real home. The kind that was not about buildings or planets, but about the people who filled your heart and gave you days. Meaning and standing there on his porch. Surrounded by everything he loved, Daniel knew that he would not trade a single moment of it for all the quiet in the universe. Some stories ended happily. This one was just beginning.